Hello, bonjour, ahoy. I'm Roger Hilton, media presenter at GLOBSEC, and welcome back to another edition of GLOBcast. It might not be common knowledge to most Europeans that the EU Agency for the Space Program, or EUSPA, is based in the Czech capital. Joining me today is Rodrigo da Costa, Executive Director of the EUSPA, who will also be participating next week in the 18th edition of the Bratislava Forum. For all of our viewers out here, a quick bio. Rodrigo took up his duties as Executive Director of the EUSPA in October of 2022 and previously served as the Galileo Services Program Manager. But wait, he holds a degree in aerospace engineering from the Instituto Superior Técnico in Lisbon, a master's degree in aerospace engineering from the University of Delft, and finally, ladies and gentlemen, an MBA from the Euro MBA Consortium of Business Schools. Mr. da Costa, Rodrigo, thank you for joining us on GLOBcast today.
Roger, thank you very much for having me today here.
Well, let's get started, Rodrigo. Over the course of the last 18 months and beyond, a vast majority of international attention has been focused on security and a host of other geopolitical issues. Let's set some boundaries and establish this for our listeners. Given the focus of these topics, do you think that the space domain has been overlooked to a certain degree?
No, I actually don't think it has been overlooked. I mean, security for space, or security of space, if I may say, but also space for security, have been in focus since a very long time. When I mean security of space, means making sure that our assets, actually quite critical, quite important assets for our daily lives, making sure that they are secure, making sure that they are providing the services, the data that they need to provide. In addition to that, there is also the other angle, which is the angle of space for security. So how space can contribute to the security missions, to the security applications that there are, civil security, military security. I don't think it has been overlooked, but clearly, of course, we have now an increased focus also on this aspect of space.
Well, you've really provided a great outline of all of the services that you do, and based on that input, it seems clear that it's almost impossible to overlook space. My next question to you, as I said, is the EUSPA recently celebrated 10 years of being based in Prague. What do you assess as some of its greatest accomplishments of the last decade?
Wow, it's true. It's already 10 years. It's actually more than 10 years that we are based here in the wonderful city of Prague. We actually existed before that because we were coming from Brussels. We were in Brussels, and then we came to Prague back in 2012. A lot happened in these 10, 11 years. Well, first of all, in terms of people working here, we have basically multiplied by 6. We were a bit less than 50 when we came in 2012. Today we are about 300, a little bit below 300. So this already means a lot in terms of the importance of the agency. But we have achieved very concrete milestones. We have achieved very concrete results. We have right now the EGNOS system providing services. We have Galileo available worldwide in initial services since 2016 and many other things. So 10 years may seem a long time, may seem a short time, but it's in fact we achieved quite a lot in this period.
Well, given your input a little bit, it also seems like a great sign for the space agency that you've expanded from the staff and you've taken on so many other projects. You've already stolen my thunder a little bit on some of the other sort of short abbreviations that we'll get to right now. But as you said, the mission of the EUSPA has expanded so much where there's really a roster of projects fusing everyday activities to sort of the space domain. This includes, but is not limited to, agriculture, weather, as well as environmental matters. And for all of our viewers out there, a few stats to share. You guys are responsible for 250,000 plus jobs that are supported by the EU space, with value added estimated at between 46 and 54 billion. 80% of flood events in Europe are assisted by the Copernicus Emergency Management Services, and over 2,000 lives are saved annually thanks to the Galileo Search and Rescue Service. And I could go on for much longer. So basically, in your view, how is the EUSPA advancing the policy objectives of the EU and contributing to the lives of EU citizens?
Thanks for the question. At first, I think it is important to explain briefly what do we do? What is our role in this fantastic endeavor that is the EU Space Program? So the EU Space Program, of course, has many components. There are many things that we do in the EU Space Program, in particular on what concerns the field of navigation, with our regional navigation system EGNOS, but also our global navigation system Galileo. There is Copernicus for Earth observation. There is GovSatcom for governmental secure communications, space situational awareness, and many other areas. Now, we as an agency are positioned quite clearly. We have 3 missions. We exploit, we secure, and we foster the market. What do I mean with that? Let's start with the first one. We exploit. That basically means we as an agency are responsible for the exploitation of Galileo and EGNOS. So we basically operate the systems throughout their lifetimes, making sure that the signals, making sure that the data is arriving to the users with the required availability, but also with the required accuracy. And I have to tell you that it is quite outstanding. I'm very proud to say that Galileo, for example, is around 3 times more precise than GPS. It's actually significantly more precise, even more than that, than the Russian system GLONASS or the Chinese system Beidou. So that there's really a lot of what we Europeans can be proud about. But there's more than that. We are right now developing the governmental secured communication capabilities of Europe through the GovSatcom program. We are becoming the front desk for space surveillance and tracking, so to better understand what is going on in space and what is our environment when we operate our systems in space. The second element, this one I've mentioned already a little bit when you asked the first question, is related to security. Security means, of course, securing the systems, making sure that the Galileo satellites are secure, physically secure, but also secured. Cybersecurity is a key element. It's becoming more and more important. This is true for Galileo. It's true for EGNOS as well. When we look at the other components of the program, be it Copernicus, GovSatcom, we have responsibilities in terms of accreditation, so guaranteeing their security. And then there is the other angle, which is the angle of providing services to the security community, to the users of security. Typically, we are talking about EU governments, governmental organizations, governmental departments. And there we are a governmental service provider, right now working with a public regulated service of Galileo, but very soon expanding also to GovSatcom and eventually other fields. The third area of competence and the third area of activity is related to fostering the markets. And we have to think that we are talking about a massive investment of Europe in space. Just to give you an idea, only in the EU space program, we are talking about 15 billion euro between the years 21 and 27, not counting all the investments that have been there in the past. Obviously, these investments need to bring benefits, and this is crucial, this is key. How do those benefits materialize? Well, they materialize by bringing them to the users. So there on the user side, we analyze the markets. We look at how users can benefit on very different sectors, transport, for example, road, rail, aviation, but also things like agriculture, forestry, energy management, banking and insurance. I could give you a very wide range of examples there. And then we help companies developing applications, developing solutions that are based on EU space data and services to solve concrete problems and concrete challenges of those what we call downstream or those target user segments, market segments. And by the way, we are very proud of the adoption that we have already achieved.
Well, you've outlined so much of it, and it seems, you're doing a little bit of technical maintenance and as well as really providing it to the end user. What I found very interesting about the response here is sort of all of the data that you're using and the diverse fields that you're providing with it. Since you've come on, what has really surprised you about how the space realm is, helping farmers or other people specifically? I mean, there's that one stat about the 97% of tractors now being connected to it. So love to hear some of that.
Thank you. And even nowadays, I mean, I've been, you've mentioned in the introduction, I've been a professional in the areas of space for a long time. And even nowadays, I'm getting surprised by seeing how the adoption and how far the adoption has moved. Today, for example, if you look at Galileo, we have about 3.5 billion receivers worldwide that are equipped with Galileo. Every modern mobile phone, the wearables people use for sports, but also in cars and in many other areas, they are already equipped with Galileo. If you want me to name, let's say, the two big areas of surprise that I have had recently, for example, looking at agriculture, nowadays around 97% of all the tractors that are sold in the European Union, they are equipped with EGNOS, with the EGNOS navigation system. Why this is important? Well, it is important because by having precise navigation on board of the tractor, you actually avoid that the tractor passes twice through the same area of land. Now, if you look at these on a very big field, it means You are optimizing the use of water, you are reducing the use of pesticides, we are making our agriculture more efficient. And the efficiency of agriculture is key, for example, to achieve the Green Deal targets that are so important in order for us to tackle the immense challenge that we have ahead of us, actually, as humanity, when we look at climate change. Second area, where I was somehow surprised. It was one of those aha moments for this.
You must get a lot of those every day.
I do. Was when looking at what are the areas with the biggest growth in terms of use of Earth observation data, Earth observation satellite data, in particular Copernicus, and we looked at the forecasts, and the forecast, it's actually insurance and finance. It was, for me, a topic I didn't associate going to the bank or to the insurance company and how that connects with pictures from space. Well, it does. It does because, in particular in the insurance field, insurance companies are benefiting from space data in order to better calculate premium, to evaluate their insurances, etc., etc. So there is also there a lot of value that is added to the business.
Well, it seems, as you said, there's a lot of bizarre connections and all of these aha moments that not just your agency is having, but a lot of Europeans who might know it. Before we move on to the next subject, what I could just love to get your take on is, in terms of the government participation of the EU members, is it all 27 members who are playing a role, or is it a little bit more selective in terms of how they participate and contribute?
It's an excellent question. So we are, when you introduced EUSPA, you mentioned correctly, we are an agency of the European Union. So we belong to the European Union, meaning to all our 27 member states. We have very close connections, certainly with the European Commission, with the European Parliament, but also with the European Council, and with that, with all the 27 member states. And one of the things where we really do a very strong effort is to be inclusive and really to foster the use and to foster the involvement of all the member states. And not only all the member states, but also to involve in particular small and medium enterprises, to involve entrepreneurs, to involve new people into the domain of space. We've just run a competition end of last year. It was the last one of our competitions focused on the downstream. And I'm very proud to see that 40% of the budget went actually to small and medium enterprises, which is quite exceptional. But also looking to our calls, we have offers coming from south to north, from east to west of the European Union. People are becoming more and more aware, and they are willing to participate. So I would not remark one or the other country because we really want to be inclusive. Certainly there are countries that have a longer tradition in space in Europe, others with less tradition, but with a lot of ambition. And I think if we bring that ambition forward, we will make space even more inclusive.
Well, I mean, I think it's supremely optimistic for Europeans to know, as you said, that it's not a collection, a monopoly of countries who are doing it, and what they might lack in experience, they're making up for in optimism and hard work. So we look forward to the next state. We've talked about the inner workings, sort of the farmer who's profiting from it, the industry's insurance. Of course, working in space is not something you can do alone easily. Can you maybe comment a little bit on the international cooperation and how your agency is working with other bodies around the world?
Sure. In space, it is very important to collaborate, to cooperate. Before I talk about international collaboration, let me just focus for a moment about European-wide collaboration. I've mentioned we work with the Commission, we work with the European Council, we work with the European Parliament, we work as well with the European Space Agency, we work with member states, we work with space agencies in the different member states. We work a lot with industry, the industry that builds the satellites and the equipments, the industry that operates those, but also the industry that uses the data and services to make them into usable results. So how to transform data in information, which is always a particular challenge. Now, in addition to that, space is also about collaboration, and collaborating internationally certainly is an important point. Look, for example, I will give you two quick examples. Look, for example, at Galileo. When we look at Galileo, Galileo is interoperable with GPS, which means in normal circumstances, in the everyday life, users can use Galileo or GPS in an interoperable manner. And this is good because it gives more satellite availability. It is good because it gives more resilience. And therefore, this is an excellent collaboration in terms of interoperability between the two systems. Certainly the two systems can work independently and autonomously, which is key also for our strategic autonomy, also a topic of important relevance. But there is this element of interoperability complementarity. The second example I would cite, and I don't know if you have noticed it already, whenever there is a natural catastrophe anywhere around the world, wildfires in California, floods in Southeast Asia, whatever it may be, and if you open a newspaper, typically you see a satellite image with the damage that was caused. One of the things that you will notice is that most of those images, not to say all of them, but most of those images actually come from Copernicus. So whenever there is an activation in a disaster management situation, we are, from Europe, we are providing data for catastrophe management, disaster management situations everywhere in the world. And this is extremely important because indeed this is this collaboration that we all need.
Well, you said a great term there, which is an excellent segue to my next section, talking about resiliency and crisis management. Of course, you know, the European continent has changed quite drastically since February 24th, and the EU and its member states have really stood behind Ukraine and supported it in a whole different set of ways. Getting ready for this interview, I was very interested and curious, one of those aha moments, to learn about sort of this EU Space for Ukraine network. So maybe for all of our viewers, you could elaborate on how your agency is actually helping Ukraine in humanitarian or disaster relief at the moment.
Absolutely. This is one of those initiatives of which we are really proud. It really means a lot to us. We are very touched, certainly, by the situation in many aspects, also from the humanitarian point of view. And it is why from the first hour, we felt the responsibility of doing something, and we did. EU Space for Ukraine is not a project, it is an initiative, and it's an initiative that has many different elements. We are bringing, basically the objective is to bring together non-governmental organizations, NGOs that are in the field, with entrepreneurs and innovators that know how to use space data. The ones bring the reality, bring the need. The others bring the knowledge of how to use the data. We have organized matchmaking, bringing people together. We have organized hackathons. We have organized demonstrators, and basically we are coming with very interesting examples, very interesting solutions. If you look for a moment, what were the needs that we found out? What were the needs of the people on the ground, the people on the field? For example, need for updated maps. Sometimes the map of yesterday or the map of 2 weeks ago is not enough anymore if you are in an emergency rescue situation. So how can we provide up-to-date maps to NGOs, to fire brigades, etc., etc. Geotagging. How can we geotag, for example, cultural heritage sites in order to improve their protection? And there are many other examples. And it is quite interesting because you get around the call, around the table, those NGOs that know the needs, and then you have the entrepreneurs. And the entrepreneurs, they come and say, okay, yeah, I know how to use that solution. I know how to make that work. And we are seeing a lot of, let's call it fertilization. We are seeing ventures being created in order to serve those needs. And by the way, we are also seeing spillovers. We are seeing others in this domain or in other domains using the same approach, bringing together those that have needs with those that have solutions in order to advance. So it's something we are really, really proud about.
It's super impressive that you're, as you said, sort of making these synergies on the ground. You've already talked about the spillover a little bit, but presumably you guys have also learned something from the Ukrainian users of the data and some new tricks maybe, right, given their heritage.
No, absolutely. I mean, and this is really a synergetic effect. I mean, we are continuing all this matchmaking, etc. We will have now in summer coming also a set of demonstrations where we will have the entrepreneurs and the people providing the solutions working together with NGOs. And there is really this learning effect because someone expresses a need, then someone comes with a solution, but the solution is not really targeted to the needs, or the need may have evolved. So this continuous dialogue is extremely important, and this is something we want to foster. By the way, it's something we use here, something we use as well in other domains.
Well, presumably the closer relations between Ukraine eventually becoming a member of the EU will only grow a little bit more, but it's great to see sort of the synergies doing and everybody profiting from it, both on a technical standpoint as well as in a humanitarian. I can't get away, Executive Director, without asking you about what the upcoming EUSPA moonshot projects are. So if we look for the stars, as we say, what are some of the things you and your team are working on at the moment?
Yeah, we are. Well, first of all, literally on moonshot, we are not working because we don't do exploration. This is an important point. No, but we have a lot of very ambitious but very interesting projects on our table right now. Let me mention to you a few. Well, we have one that is not anymore news because it is already a reality, is the high accuracy service of Galileo. Very proud of that one. This is about today, in a typical navigation solution, you have a precision of a couple of meters. We are improving that by a factor of 10. And this is extremely important. It's extremely important, for example, if you look at certain applications, like, for example, autonomous driving, that can benefit a lot from satellite navigation. Autonomous driving, a precision of 2 meters may not be enough because it means you are on the other side of the road. Now, a precision of 20 centimeters already makes the difference. So this is certainly one of those projects of which we are very proud. And it was a moonshot, now it's a reality. We are working on others. We are working on navigation message authentication. This is to give the guarantee to the user that what she or he is receiving is really a message coming from a satellite and not from some wanted or unwanted interference from the outside. Very important also in many different sectors, also in the road sector. For example, we are working in things like emergency warning service, so how to use the capability of satellite navigation also to provide emergency warning messages in case of catastrophic situations, wildfires, flooding, etc., etc. We are working on things like remote beacon activation. So there's many things that we have ahead of us. Very long list, big ambition, but also feet on the ground. Because we understand we have to continue delivering what we are delivering today. So we continue focused on our mission, and we are working for the ambitions of the future.
Well, maybe moonshot wasn't strong enough of a term, but it goes without saying that you really are developing for the EU sort of over-the-horizon capabilities. And while it's impossible to sort of completely de-risk the future, you're at least trying to manage the fallout much more and all of the data products that are going to be available. Next week, Executive Director, you're going to be joining us at the Bratislava Forum, the heart of Central and Eastern Europe. Speaking to this audience, what is the main message that you want to convey to the international audience who's going to be there when it comes to your program or about the work of the EU and space?
Now, for me, the key and major message I want to convey is the importance of space. It's the importance of space and the growing importance of space in many different sectors, also, of course, in the security domain. But it's really about that, is to continue increasing the consciousness of all of us, also our key decision makers, that space is key. Space is crucial. It's crucial for many things. We've talked about the Green Deal. We could have talked about digitalization. We talked about strategic autonomy. We could have talked about resilience of our economy. On all these areas, space has a key contribution, and this is a very strong message to pass.
Well, I think you'll have a very receptive audience, but there might be a few questions on that. Mr. Da Costa, thank you so much for taking your time today. Obrigado for joining GLOBcast, and we really can't wait to receive you in the coming week in Bratislava.
Thank you very much for having me.
For everybody who's watching out there, you can grab all of former podcasts on Spotify and all of our other media products. So live from Prague, thank you very much and see you next week in Bratislava. Goodbye.